Hello, welcome to episode number 2 of the Forensic Social Work Podcast. This episode is just going to be me solo, but I have some things that I definitely want to share with the world out there. Anybody that's in this field, I feel like I have some experience now that I can share, and I think might be beneficial to people. These are at least things that I wish that someone would have shared with me on my first day in the field, and even pre-grad school. So, and this is going to be the COVID-19 at home casual edition. So bear with me. Um, as a forensic social worker, which is such a niche thing, right? It's people generally when they think social workers, like they think so many things. A lot of times they assume like the whole baby snatchers, right? Working for CPS. But there's so many different things that social workers can do, and that's specifically why I chose to go into social work for my graduate studies, just because of how diverse the work field was and how many opportunities there are available to us, and just the this the awareness of like these social factors that I feel like other kind of mental health specific programs don't have, or don't hit on, where they're more maybe like micro focused. We bring in that macro. Like I feel like we do a good job of merging the micro with the macro. In that, maybe we're somewhat vulnerable to some disillusionment that other fields aren't, because we're kind of more aware of the broader picture and the systemic things that influence our clients. So with that in mind, I realize I haven't really introduced myself. My name is Tim MacArthur. I am a licensed clinical social worker with the state of Colorado. I've been doing this work for almost 3 years now. This work specifically. Previous to that, I did a lot of therapy and that kind of thing, more like kind of individual micro stuff. But now I'm working on a different level. And for those of you that specifically sought this out, you're probably aware that forensic social work means social work within the criminal justice system. Any type of involvement. There's a wide array of what we do, and many different spectrums and focuses. And so with the podcast on this, especially for when it's just me, like it's hard to address that wide plethora of, well, you could be doing this, you could be doing that, you could be working with DHS, you could be working with the DA, you could be working with the public defender, you could be working with a guardian ad litem. I don't even know if I even know all the different ways that and things that forensic social workers do. But what I can do is tell you from my experience, my somewhat limited experience, what I do and what I've found useful in the field and the issues that I run into. And so from my perspective, the main thing that I really want to convey with this episode specifically is that of I am the devil's advocate. And I hope that in all of your rounds, you're able to be that person as well. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of assumptions that are made in the world in general about people, like people that commit crimes are bad. They're bad people. And it's kind of a superficial label that we give people, and we don't really examine that. What does that mean? Bad. Like, where does bad come from? What is evil? What is good? I mean, right? There's the spectrum of things, and especially when you're working with clients that have a huge trauma history, or maybe younger and more vulnerable clients, you realize that this is not like an individual character trait. This is not, these people did not grow up in a vacuum. There are specific things that influenced their progression, and there are reasons why these kids, there's a multitude of reasons, and it's hard to just summarize those when we meet one client for however long. like, oh, this is what made this person the way they are. Like, there's so many reasons, but you can always generally point out, some pretty major events that happened in that person's life that kind of sent them down the road that they're on, and there's a reason why, now they're labeled a bad person, an evil person, or they have criminal justice system involvement in some way, form, or fashion. And that's true whether you're talking about a juvenile client, whether you're talking about, this is like I said, the COVID-19 at home edition. You get reality, and this is my reality. So yeah, that is true whether you're talking about anybody that has criminal justice system involvement. If we're talking about parents that are involved in a dependency neglect case, or if we're talking about the juvenile that is on that case, the whole reason that case exists. If we're talking about 10 years later, that juvenile now is involved in the criminal justice system, has some sort of juvenile delinquency charge, or if we're talking about your substance, the epidemic of substance use. I mean, all of that is the criminal justice system right now, right? That's the criminal justice system is so all-encompassing. It's this kind of big brother that like tries to police generally lower income people, sometimes higher income people, but let's be honest, there's no fair shake, right? And so to summarize that, I am the devil's advocate. I am the person that stands up for the evil person, for the bad kid, and says, okay, yeah, this happened, and it's not great, and I don't like that it happened, and I'm not trying to like justify it necessarily, but I am telling you that this person was not born a bad person. They didn't just like strike up some deal with the devil. They didn't have the devil gene. Certain things happened that don't happen to other people that are successful in our society, right? And I'm sure that to most of you, like, this is just like duh, right? But I'm surprised to find out how many people still have that kind of antiquated belief about people of this like good and evil. And I'm not trying to get into like religion or anything. I'm just saying that life is infinitely more complex than just these basic black and white labels, right? So what we need to do is kind of bring to light what that complexity is, okay? It's not just a simple black and white thing where a person was bad, they behaved badly, you punish them, everything's good, right? Yeah, if it worked that well, our society would be in a lot better shape than it is, but it's not. Our society, the more that we punish, it seems like the worse it gets. Like the prisons just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, 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 bigger. Like obviously that doesn't work. Just thinking that people are bad and if you punish them, they'll get better. Oh, maybe that works sometimes, but not all the time. There's no one size fits all approach on this. So the more that I can really dig in and understand this client and the events that impacted them and how those specific events impacted them specifically, right? Because same event will impact two different people differently. One person may be no big deal, they get through it fine. Another person, it's just devastating. And I feel like that is kind of the biggest issue that the criminal justice system doesn't get. They try to treat everybody that's poor with this kind of one size fits all approach. Yes, I'm biased against the richer, more affluent, more privileged populations because they get special privilege. They don't go to prison. Old rich white guys don't go to jail. They don't get stuck in jail. They don't go to prison. They get off. Like, they are the man. I tell my clients all the time, dude, you can fight the man all you want, but eventually you realize the man always wins, unless you are the man. And in our clients' cases, like, they are oppressed by the man, and the man is going to push them down. And the only thing that we can really do is our clients are used to this. You know, they've been born into this world where oppression is just a thing. And maybe consciously or subconsciously, they've been trying to fight against it, but they're not getting any support. The system, which includes, you know, the DHS or their parents, even sometimes, I mean, systems or however, the subsystems like their parents, the school, you know, anybody involved with this kid has maybe labeled this kid as a bad kid. But when you look at, when you generally, you know, I can't say, you know, blanket statement everybody, but generally when you look at the kid and what they were going through, or the person and what they went through, you see that, oh, well, their reaction was completely normal in this situation. Like, I would have done that too. Like, no wonder they behave that way. But the tragedy is that no one ever brings that up. No one ever brings that to light. So regardless of what your role is in the system, I really hope that you do some work. Maybe this sounds almost like you're an investigator or something, but in some ways our roles are to be an investigator, to figure out like what is the reality here. You know, it's easy to just assume the reality superficially. When we really find out kind of what's going on underneath the surface, you find out reality might be a lot different than what you assumed. I want to transition here to in that kind of realm of, we're being the devil's advocate, where we're supporting our clients. And I think most of us got into this business because we wanted to make a difference. We want to change the world. We want to help people. Here's the advice that I'll give you if that is your mentality, or it was your mentality, and you've kind of lost that going on because you become inevitably burnout when you realize how difficult that really is. I'm just going to tell you, be their voice. Be your client's voice. They don't have a voice. No one listens to them. No one cares. No one has ever listened to them. You may be the first person in their entire life who has ever given them any time of day. And hopefully you're giving them the time of day. Hopefully you're listening to them. And if you're not, you better cut that shit out and start doing your job right. Don't be one of those people. You know, I realize it's hard when we're dealing with all these clients and all these systemic issues and then our own shit on top of that. But when you're there with your client, you that's the one thing you can do. You give that client their space. You listen to them, and then you advocate for them. You be their voice, because more than likely no one's ever done that before. That, to me, that's the biggest difference you can make. You know, if you want to change this person, just listen to them and then tell their story. So many people are in this field get frustrated because they come in with that idea, I'm going to change the system, I'm going to change the world, and then they get frustrated because of this lack of progress, or even what we see a lot is resistance to progress. Like these systems, that idea of homeostasis, systems don't want to change, and when you try to push the system will push back against you, regardless if that's a family system or the criminal justice system or like political systems, any kind of societal system. Systems do not like to change. They will change if they have to, but they really don't like to. And that can be frustrating for us, because maybe we're a little naive when we first get into this, and we think that, you know, change, oh, we're so powerful, we're so privileged, like we can change the world because that's what we've been told our whole goddamn life. Well, that's bullshit. Maybe that's controversial to some people, but you yourself, maybe you can change the world, but most of us don't in immediately, right? We don't ever see immediate change. It doesn't happen like that. That's not the way the world works. You are really thinking very highly of yourself if you think you have that much power. And if you have that much power, you should run for president. Because I know I don't have that much power. Once we hit that wall, right? Once we realize like our powerlessness and how powerful the system is and how much it resists change, we get burnout. People call it other things. I mean, generally the word now is burnout, but people call it disillusion, hopeless, or just everything is pointless. It's kind of just this like depression, right? Where you feel like there's no point to anything. You can't do all this change I thought was going to happen. It's not happening. So I'm going to quit. I'm going to either go do something else, or I'm going to just change my role, or maybe I'll be more macro focused, or maybe I'll be more micro focused, or whatever. But regardless of what you do, I think there's always that underlying, like, what am I doing? And if you push it to its extreme, on one side, you get this just complete apathy. Like, what's the point? I give up. Whatever. Who gives a shit? Start drinking every day after work, then every day before work, every day during work, or whatever. However, apathy comes up for you, you lose that spirit inside of you that you once had. Well, that's one side. The other side is you become angry. It becomes this. It can be either externalized or internalized, but it's anger. It's just like and you snap at your spouse, or you take it out on yourself. Maybe that's why you drink, or do whatever you do that's doesn't help you and it's not helping society. That's another side of the coin. And that's just a natural response to how difficult this work is. And when you get to that point, you're just like so frustrated, like nothing is going well, everything is pointless, I can't do anything. I want you to realize that is how your clients feel. Assuming that you're working with the population I'm working with, who have no privilege, who have no power, that's how they were born into that. That's how they feel all the time. Nobody listens to them. Nobody gives a shit. They've been judged as worthless since the day they were born. No one's wanted to hear their side of things. You think that you don't have any power. They really don't have any power. Maybe that'll help you. I don't know, or maybe that'll make you feel worse. I don't know. But regardless, the reason why we feel like that is because we're working with this population. And that is their world. Hopelessness, powerlessness. Like, no wonder they use substances or they become violent. Like, gotta do something, right? Like, they just feel stuck and there's no way to change their future. Like, they don't feel like they can be successful because no one's ever told them that. And if they did, they felt like that person wasn't being sincere. That's just that bullshit they fed me when I was in kindergarten, right? You can help. You can help. You can be their voice. You can tell their story. You can just fucking listen. And that is powerful. That is extremely powerful. Because more than likely, no one's ever done that for them before. That's the biggest thing you can do. You can give them that respect. They've tried to advocate for respect for themselves in some way, some form, some fashion, and gotten nowhere. But you just being there and like being present, okay, understand what it means to be present. If you don't understand mindfulness, you need to do your own work before you can, like the whole parable about, you pull the plank out of your own eye before you try to pull the speck out of your neighbor's eye. You got to do your own work first before you can help anybody. Okay? Learn what it's like to be present so that you can be present for your clients. And let go of your own goddamn agenda. For real. You came into this with like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that and that, but that's about you. That's not about your client. I'm taking a pause there because I want that to sink in. Because so many people come into this with this kind of like selfish mentality, which is gonna maybe piss some of you off, but I mean that because I will admit I was that person too. I think we all have been that person where we think that we're gonna change the world. But But that's not about the world. That's about you and your own like ego. You gotta let that shit go, man. It's not about you. It's about your client. Be present with your client. Let go of your agenda. And that's really the only thing that you can do. That is the only power that you have, the power to be present with your client and to tell their fucking story or to listen to their story, whatever your role is. Like, just be there. That doesn't get enough respect. I've heard that whole Rogerian thing. You know, I was trained on that. I understand that that's too touchy-feely for some people. And of course, when I was a young undergrad / grad student, and I was like, oh, no, radical acceptance, unconditional, but this is stupid. It's just touchy-feely hippie crap. Dude, I'm telling you, it's for real. That is so powerful, especially to someone that has never had that. You think maybe sometimes their moms are great, or their parent, or whoever their main guardian figure is, their supposed attachment figure. I mean, I feel if most of them had a secure attachment, they wouldn't be here. They more than likely they haven't had that, but they can have that. They can have that through you. Like, you are so privileged to be in that spot. You're not privileged by I can help this person. I can do. No, you can be there for that person. You can support that person. You are so privileged just to hold space for their story. You get to hear this unique, like, we go to these movies and we watch these stories of these people's lives and we think that they're significant because they did something significant or they achieved some kind of success or something like that. But I feel like so many of my clients, like, I could write so many books about each one of my clients' experiences because it's so complex and it's so compelling and it's so, like, tragic that more people don't know this story. You need to give it that importance. Like, dude, tell me your story. My God, that happened to you? Or that, I can't believe that no one's ever acknowledged that. You can acknowledge that. Like, what better gift could you give your client than that? I'm being maybe a little intense here, but it is intense. It is serious. Like, we don't take that seriously enough because go back to your ego. It goes back to the ego. Let go of your fucking ego. It's not about you. It's about you being there for them. It's about them. Easy to say, hard to grasp. And quit, like, trying to define yourself by these specific outcomes. That's not why you're here. Oh, I want this to, like, if my client's case gets dismissed, or if I give my client a placement, or if you have that much power to do that every single time, like, again, go run for president. But I don't have that power. Like, I can advocate for my client. I can do the best goddamn job I'm able to do that way, but I can't really control what really happens to them long term. You know, I can maybe suggest things to them, but in the end, like, it's up to them and it's up to the system. I'm not part of either one of those things, so I really influence very little. If you ever do make a difference, it's going to be so if you ever make a difference in this client's life, it's going to be so far after you're gone, you won't know. It's that idea of the butterfly effect, which is kind of cliche now and overused, but I feel like it really explains systems theories and just how complex this stuff is better than anything, because there's not this, I talk to a client, boom, their life improves and they all of a sudden change and things are great, you know? Don't work like that, right? Maybe you plant a seed, but you can't guarantee that it'll grow. And you can't guarantee that it'll be watered. Maybe it will. And even if it does, like, your client's life turns around and everything happened, like, how can you guarantee that that was you that made that difference? And not something else, or just it would have happened anyway. Which is so disillusioning to some people because of this idea of ego. Like, I am going to do all this stuff. Like, oh, you and your power and your privilege. you white savior, even if you ain't white, but that's still white savior complex, right? Like, you can change the fucking world because only you have the power and your clients can't do shit. They're powerless. Shut up. Stop it. Stop it. Let go. You're still trying to control everything. Let it go. And it's probably offensive to a lot of people because we really like our egos and we don't let that shit go. But I can't emphasize it enough. It's not about you. The more that it's about you, the more miserable you're going to be and the more prone to burnout you're going to be. This is kind of this idea of determinism almost, you know, where people feel like, well, if I can't change my fate, then what's the point? If I can't change my client's fate, why am I even doing this? Well, maybe you can, but you won't know. You'll never know. Stop trying to be white savior. You were there. You did your job. Great. Good for you. Like, it can pat yourself on the back. Can that just be enough? Can you let it go then? Don't be tied to outcomes. Now, I'm going to transition into another part here where what you can do, other than with your clients, right? Like, other than trying to just be there or change their lives or whatever, that's not your concern, okay? If you understand motivational interviewing, you realize that true motivation comes within, and you can try to spark it, but you can never guarantee that it's going to ignite. You know, that's all on the client. You don't have 100% control, so let go of that idea. If you're all about control, you're not going to have a good time with this. Things are not going to go well for you, okay? So maybe if you can't let that shit go, you should find a different field to work in. But what you can do is hold the other people accountable, because no one else will. And they're dealing with the criminal justice system. This is a bureaucracy, in case you didn't know. Bureaucracies have many moving parts, and many moving parts that get stuck. And these stuck pieces need to somehow be nudged to become unstuck. Now, can you change the whole system? If you can do that, yeah, get into macro, go run and become president. But if you can't do that, what you can do is you can hold these people accountable. So many people in this field, maybe they're burnout, or maybe they just weren't trained correctly, but they don't do their goddamn jobs. And if you're in any kind of role where you can hold those people accountable, create some transparency there, that's a big thing. You need to do that. And that can be a little problematic, because when you check people on their privilege, that tends to make them very uncomfortable. We people have privilege. To be able to have a job and not do it and not worry about getting fired, that's ultimate privilege, right? You just sit back, collect your paycheck, and no one's saying like, hey, you know, you really didn't look into that case enough, or you really didn't advocate for whatever their role is. They're not doing it, but yet they're still collecting a paycheck, because that happens a lot. And what happens in this system, it really screws things up long term. And when you try to point that out, people will become very defensive. They will become ugly and nasty, mean, because they don't want to give up that privilege. Yeah, it's a great cushy ass job, and I don't have to think about, you know, taxpayer money or whatever I'm wasting, because no one's made me have to think about that. And then that it'll create that cognitive dissonance in me, that like, oh well, I'm kind of a mooch on the system. You know, I talk about my clients that are mooching off the system, but if I'm getting paid by the system to do my job, and I'm not doing that job, then I'm the mooch on the system. No, that can't be right. It's got to be all my clients, right? We know that process, but that's what will happen. And so there's a couple ways to go about that. You know, the way that I like to go about it is the whole keep your friends close, but your enemies closer idea, where if you straight up check people on their privilege, you come at just the system like bah. Some people are good at that. I'm not good at that. You know, I feel weird. I'm not good at like confrontation. I get anxious, and so I try to do that through relationships with people. And in the role I'm at, maybe with my colleagues, I tend to take on kind of a good cop, bad cop persona. Well, I'll be the good cop. You know, I'll form a relationship with this person, and I'll be kind of the community tie. And then my colleague over here can be the bad cop. Just come in, guns blazing, like bop, 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 bop. Light them up, right? I want to be more of the mediator because I'm a social worker and I'm all touchy-feely and I want everybody to get along, and I have that whole training in nonviolent communication, but which is great for, that's just who I realize, that's who I am, and that's the way that I best interact with the system. But rebel rousers definitely have a place. They really push the system for change, which can lead to some pushback. And that's where I realize I can kind of step in and then like be that good call. Oh, well, you know, we're just trying to get, you know, this outcome. Like we're all trying to get we're all trying to save money here or whatever the agenda is, you know. But like if you put this person goes into the criminal justice system, it's just going to cost more. So if we catch this more upflow, then yeah, that'll save us money. So I think we're both on the same page. Whatever your advocacy is with the system, you know, whatever you've got to do. That's my spot. But if you're one of those rebel rousers, by God, you have a gift, and don't lose that fire. Keep fucking shit up. Push for change. My God, we need you. I'm not so good at that. I get anxious, like I said. I don't like confrontation, conflict. Puts me in a weird spot. Maybe I didn't fight enough when I was a little kid or something. But or my parents did it. My parents just kind of avoided. They were the avoidance. So that's my style. You have your style. Figure out what your style is and realize that's your specific gift. And in the right context, it is a gift and it will be an asset and you can use it. When we get upset about the way the system is and how broken the system's broken, the system's broken, the system was designed to be broken. In case you didn't know, or in case you haven't realized, it's not an accident that it turned out this way. It's very intentional. In fact, I'm sometimes surprised that it's as, what's the correct word? Like as little broken as it is, I'm surprised it's not more broken. Because we want our clients to all, you know, succeed and be healthy and be well educated, all their mental health, get the appropriate treatment for whatever their needs are. But here's the thing: healthy, educated people challenge power, and the people in power don't like having their privilege checked. The people that don't have power want power, and people that have power want more power. Everybody wants it, but there's only so much to go around. And the people that have all the power really don't want to share. In fact, they just want to take more and more and more power. Which is why this system is the way it is. I could go on for a whole podcast of itself, of this concept, kind of like this like scenario of 1984 or whatever dystopian novel that you've read, but there is a reason why the criminal justice system is designed the way it is, why the drug war is a thing, why you just can't seem to get more mental health treatment for your clients. The system doesn't want to. There's more than enough money out there in the world to fix this problem. Yeah. But the people with all that money don't want to give that money up. And so we're left just scrounging for scraps in this, with this propped up system that behaves in this dysfunctional way, but yet we're a cog in the wheel of that system. Like we're part of that system, which is, you know, maybe really offend some of you. Again, you're going to have that cognitive dissonance. Like, no, 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 I fight the system. You, in some way, form or fashion, are employed by the system. Regardless of your role, somehow you're part of this system. Maybe you help to try to like plug up the system or reset the system, but you're still part of that system. We all hate to admit that, but I'm a part of this system. I try to operate against the system, like I'm paid by the system to fight the system, which is great. That's like the ultimate rebelliousness. My old 16-year-old Rage Against the Machine self would be super proud with who I've become, because I'm like the ultimate punk rock social rebel in some ways, but yet I'm a sellout in others. We're not going to get into that. Which is like this existentialist dilemma, right? Where we have to choose between the societal benefit versus the client benefit. Because even though a lot of people maybe resent the police, I understand that concern, but yet again, I realize that when shit goes down, I'm gonna be the first motherfucker to be like, 911. You know, I'm glad that the police are around, and I appreciate them for the role, even though I realize they're not perfect. Yet again, they're just as I'm a cog in the wheel, they're a cog in the wheel too. If you think the police suck, go down to Mexico, like libertarian anarchist paradise right there, yo. I'm a big advocate for power. If you haven't figured it out yet, maybe that's Nietzschean of me, which, fair enough, yeah, it's Nietzschean of me. But if you pull the government out, somebody else is going to fill that void. And say like in Mexico, well, it's the narcos, drug cartel, the government corrupts. So like whatever is in control here is running the show. And in America, it's privileged white men, corporations, whatever. It's money. It's all money. Going off on a tangent, I'm gonna stop myself. I sound like my grandpa, man. But that's kind of where we're stuck. Is if we really go too far on that spectrum, just let all the clients free. I've known anarchists in the system that are just like, screw the government. We want to just break it all down. I am not one of those people. I'm thankful for the protections I have that allow me to have the privilege I do have. Anyone talking shit about privilege is obviously never had to give up their privilege. There's a reason why we don't want to give it up. But the more that we are blaming the cops or we're blaming all those damn criminals, the peasants are just squabbling amongst themselves. And we're missing the big picture. We're not pointing the finger at the system that has the people who have designed the system to be broken. The slave owners, the privileged few. Doesn't necessarily have to be white, but those people who concentrate all the power and don't share it, who have engineered the system this way. This is kind of dangerous thinking. And again, it's that 1984 dystopian thing. But this is the system you're in. It's a broken system. How do you come to terms with that? I don't necessarily have an answer for you. I'm still trying to come to terms with it myself. It's a difficult thing. We don't live in a utopia. And I don't know if there ever could be one. I don't know if human beings, life in general, is engineered that way. There's always been these like power imbalances. And there's always been, people with power and people with privilege and then people without. And while it's idealist to say, let's try to balance that out a little bit more, which is what I think we try to do, will it ever be perfectly balanced? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe if we evolved into some really higher thinking creatures or AI just takes over, possibly. But in the reality that we currently live in, we have to just accept it. That radical acceptance of this is the way it is. But that doesn't mean I have to be okay with it and I have to just kind of give in to apathy. You can accept it. You can still fight against it, which is, I feel like, as the healthy, like, I don't know if anything is completely healthy because this is not a healthy system we live in. So how can we be healthy? And maybe those into, more Western practice or super religion can bring that point across, which I'll address here in a minute. But there's always going to be bad days. But then there'll be some good days too. And right now, let's talk about COVID. This is a bad day. This is not good. I mean, maybe for a very few people, this is a good day, but I'm having a hard time figuring out who those people would be. Jeff Bezos, maybe? We're at a bad time. This is one of those events that people look back. Well, we read through our history books and we saw like the Black Death, these points in time were addressed with almost like dread and like, oh my God, what would it have been like to live through? How did those people make it? Well, 100 years from now, people would probably be looking back on us thinking the same thing. Like, how did those people survive through that? That was such a dystopia, such a terrible time to be alive. We're surviving through it. How are we making do? When it really sunk in what we were into, I think everybody kind of had this, well, maybe not. Maybe they went straight to despair. But me, myself, I had this maybe idealized, okay, this sucks, but I'm going to make the best of it, okay? I'm going to meditate every day. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to work on myself and become all these things I've wanted to do. I'm going to do. I'm going to get them done. I'm going to be so productive. I'm going to explore all this. I'm going to go backpacking or just use this time to explore the outdoors like I've wanted to do for so long. And has it turned out that way? No. I've been slightly productive, maybe slightly more than I would have been, but no, not even. I have not. I try every morning. I've tried to get into this practice of meditation, mindfulness, spirituality, whatever you want to call it. It goes by different names. I've tried to institute that. I have not been consistent with it. It's I don't know why. I know it's good for me, but it's so difficult. Like routine, I almost I crave it, yet I inherently resist it, and that probably. Maybe that's a human trait because my clients get into that too. We just need to do something to feel like we have some options. We need some new stimulation. I don't know. It's been slow. That's all I can say. I have been able to go outside, still not as much as I wanted to. I mean, my one saving grace is I live here in Colorado, so I'm definitely more blessed. I have more privilege than a lot of people who don't have the ability just go out onto the BLM away from everybody. So that's great. The reality set in real quick for me. First off, it was just fear. When I really started realizing, what this virus is, what the situation is, complete fear. And then disillusionment. What's everything I had hoped for and everything I'd been working towards? Now I'm like, it's the depression. Everything, I'm gonna lose everything, and lots of wasted time. Well, that whole idea of being productive, no, didn't happen. Maybe in some days I can, but then some days I get nothing done. I get sucked down in the rabbit hole of the news or just giving my brain a break, YouTube video, stupid mindless entertainment. And I'm judging myself, which I shouldn't be, but I am. But then there's the should, which I shouldn't be using shoulds. Like, I just got to be accepting of this moment and be where it is. Like, we're all human, and this is a traumatic situation that we're living through. Maybe for some people, it's a, I don't know if you know the idea of big T, little t. For some people, this is a big T trauma. Like, this is, they lost someone. They have it. They lost their job. This is really going to set some people back. Some people that had sobriety going on and were really moving forward and progressing. Now they're really getting set back. Some people, it's just kind of a minor inconvenience. They were already doing this pretty much. Now they can't go out at happy hour, so that's kind of a pain, but they were pretty much at home all the time anyway. But regardless, big T, little t, it's still trauma. The hardest part of trauma is just accepting it, like processing it, and be able to integrate it into this narrative. If there's so many sources you can consult on that. Dr. Dan Siegel, any of the somatic therapists. There's so many resources on this now, which I with the Body Keeps the Score, Waking the Tiger, Vander Kolk, and Waking the Tiger. I'm forgetting his name right now, but anyway. It's crazy that there's so many sources on what trauma is and how we process trauma and what happens when trauma gets stuck and doesn't get processed. That how's the criminal justice system? It gets it. Like, we present this stuff, but it still doesn't really get it, or it doesn't care. Tangent again. But aside from the criminal justice system, I've been educated on all this stuff. Peter Levine, God, I get those brain farts. I've been educated on this, and I'm trying to be mindful of my own experience of this. I guess for me, it's a little T trauma. It hasn't necessarily directly affected me, but it does affect me, if that makes sense. It hasn't been this just like ideal situation that I've been able to just snap, like, just adjust to, and now everything's fine. And it has not been like that at all. Some days it is okay. Some days it's really not, and I really despair to life. But yet my wise mind tells me that just be aware of what's going on in here. Be mindful of this, and just go with it. Like, don't judge it. Just accept it. I guess that's my advice to all of you through my DBT training, which is easier said, instructed, than it is practiced. But just radically accept the current situation. This is what it is. And regardless if you say, I'm going to wear a mask, I'm not going to wear a mask, or however you choose to externally, like, try to manifest your semblance of power against this, it is what it is, and we all have to just accept it for that. If you choose to go down the rabbit hole of all the conspiracy theories or the scientific literature or whatever, are you accepting it? Are you still kind of in denial? If you don't accept it, just like with our clients in their situations, if you don't accept it, you're missing step one. Step one is just, you gotta just be present with yourself in this situation and accept it, that you're really here and this is really happening. Do whatever you can do right now, and whatever you can't, forgive yourself. It's okay. We're all in this traumatic situation kind of together, but it'll mostly kind of individually. Like, the way that I'm individually processing this is different from the way someone else is individually processing it, different from the way that my partner is processing it. And I can judge it. I can judge it, but does that really help anything? No. In this context, I feel like when I really start moving towards achieving my goals and processing this in a healthier manner is when I can accept that and I can just forgive myself for when I've kind of let myself down and haven't. I'm not perfect. I'm not a machine. I can't just adjust like that. We're human. We don't work that way. I have not adapted to the situation. I'm still trying, and that's all I can do. If anyone has perfectly adapted to the situation, I'm sure they're in the minority. You know, I'm sure that is not most of us. And if they feel, and most people that probably feel like they've adapted and everything's fine, they're in denial. They're way back on the stages of grief. They're not. Maybe they'll get there, or maybe they'll get stuck. I don't know. It's not my role to judge them. Judgment just makes me miserable. Whether it's focused inwardly or externally, it doesn't help. I'm trying to let that go. All that I can do is I can take care of my family and I can be there for my clients, even if it's through some stupid electronic communication or just on the phone, which is not ideal, which isn't the real thing as being there present in the room. I don't know how things are going to evolve, whether this is the future or this is just how things are going to be. Maybe we'll get used to it. I don't know. But right now, it just doesn't feel right. Like, it doesn't feel the same. I don't like it. I'm not a big virtual therapy person. Right now, I don't know how we're going to evolve to the situation. Right now, as I said, I have not adapted, but I'm trying to as best I can, and I've just accepted that. So that summarized all this, that I felt like I couldn't hit this podcast without really hitting this COVID thing, because this is a big deal. And if we're telling ourselves it's not a big deal, we're not being honest. Just be in this moment, yo. And that's hard to do because a lot of us don't want to be in this moment. But as social workers, it's kind of like we've been trained to know the difference between successfully coping and maybe unhealthy coping mechanisms. And if you're not present in the moment, you can't always be present, but it's generally better to, you can't just repress it. You can't just try to just ignore it. You got to acknowledge it. It is what it is. It's happened. We're here. Let's deal with it day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, maybe. Whatever. Wherever you are, that's where you are. Which probably it doesn't sound helpful at all. It sounds like some hippie quote or something. But that's the best I can do. That's what, for me, that's what makes me feel better. And that's all these years of training, all this money I've spent, all these resources I've devoted to knowing like what makes a human healthy. God, I'm not the biggest Brene Brown fool because I got beat over the head with her stuff in grad school, but she makes some valid points. And what her thing that made her famous was the whole vulnerability talk. Well, let's be vulnerable. Let's be vulnerable with the situation. Let's be present and let's be vulnerable. It is what it is. It sucks, but we'll get through it. All right. Well, that's episode 2. I really appreciate anybody out there that is listening to this. I hope that at some point it will be some resource for somebody. But again, letting go of my power. I don't have that power. It is what it is. I'm just putting it out in the universe. So whatever effects happen after that, it's beyond my control. But if you've tuned in, I appreciate you tuning in. And until episode 3, hang out.